The containment field flickered red as the transport shuttle descended through Valorian airspace. Commander Thexra kept her primary eyes locked on the prisoner while her secondary pair monitored the viewport. Below, the crystalline towers of the Imperial City gleamed like shattered stars against purple twilight. Inside the energy cage, something small shifted beneath a thermal blanket. Containment integrity? Thexra's voice cut through the cabin hum. 98%, Commander. The subject hasn't tested the barriers since we left the extraction point. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Vorn, adjusted his tactical display. I still don't understand why we're bringing it directly to the Queen. Standard protocol demands quarantine and... A conversation-ending sound. The thing in the cage moved again. Not threatening. Not aggressive. Just a small adjustment of position that made the blanket slip slightly. Thexra glimpsed pale skin, fragile-looking fingers clutching fabric edge. Her threat assessment system screamed contradictions. The galaxy's most wanted criminal. 37 colony ships destroyed, 2 million sentient beings dead across 16 systems. Empires had burned. Planets had gone dark. And the Terran Confederacy had finally surrendered this child after 3 years of the bloodiest war the Valorian Empire had ever waged. How old is it? Vorn asked quietly. Human age markers are unreliable. Somewhere between 7 and 9 standard cycles. Thexra accessed her wrist display. The humans call it Subject 0. Patient 7. The miracle child. Depends which file you read. And the casualties? Confirmed. Thexra's voice hardened. Bioweapon readings across every incident site match the radiation signature the child emits. Whatever the humans created, it's responsible for more deaths than any weapon in recorded history. The shuttle banked hard. Through the viewport, the Imperial Palace rose like a mountain of living light, its bioluminescent walls pulsing with the collective heartbeat of the Valorian people. Thexra had served Queen Isisvara for 20 years, survived campaigns across hostile worlds, earned 17 decorations for valor. She had never questioned an order. Until now. Commander, Vorn's tone shifted. It's awake, and it's looking at you. The blanket had fallen away completely. The child sat cross-legged on the containment platform, small hands resting on its knees. Human features. The kind Thexra had only seen in intelligence briefings and battlefield recordings. Dark hair matted against a thin face, eyes that seemed too large, too aware. No fear in them. No defiance either. Just observation. Their gazes held for 3 seconds. The child smiled. Not a predator's smile. Not a victim's desperate plea. Something else entirely. Something that made Thexra's primary stomach clench despite decades of combat conditioning. It's not supposed to be conscious, Vorn hissed. The sedation protocols were designed for human adults. Thexra interrupted. We don't know how this one's physiology works. She kept her voice level, professional. Inside, calculation engines fired. The child's smile hadn't wavered. Increase containment to maximum. And prep the stasis field. Commander, the Queen specified, alive and conscious for the judgment ceremony. Do it. Through the viewport, Thexra saw the Royal Guard assembling in formation. 12 of the Empire's finest warriors, weapons charged, positioned in perfect symmetry around the landing platform. Beyond them, the Judgment Hall's massive doors stood open. Inside, Queen Isisvara would be waiting on the Crystal Throne, surrounded by the High Council and representatives from 70 allied worlds. All of them demanding justice, all of them wanting to see the monster that had murdered millions, all of them expecting something that matched their nightmares. The child stood as the shuttle settled. It moved to the edge of the containment field and pressed one small hand against the energy barrier. The field crackled. Alarms shrieked. Vorn's weapon snapped up. Hold! Thexra's command froze him. She watched the child's hand. The containment field wasn't failing. The readings were wrong. The energy wasn't being disrupted from outside. It was being absorbed. Impossible, Vorn breathed. Nothing organic can process that much. The field collapsed. Not violently. It simply ceased to exist, energy draining into the child like water into sand. The small figure stood in open air, blanket pulled around bare feet. It looked at Thexra with those 2 large eyes. I'm sorry, the child said. Perfect Valorian? Accent-free. I didn't mean to break it. I just wanted to say thank you. Thexra's weapon stayed holstered. Training said draw. Instinct said draw. Every tactical protocol in her enhanced memory said this was the moment before catastrophe. but her hand didn't move. "Thank you for what?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "For the blanket." I was cold. The child smiled again. That same impossible smile. "And for not being mean." The other ones were always mean. The shuttle ramp extended with a pneumatic hiss. Beyond it, the Royal Guard waited. Beyond them, the Empire waited. 2 million dead waited for justice. Thexra had delivered 1,000 prisoners to judgment. She knew the protocol, knew the procedure, knew exactly what happened next. She looked at the child standing alone in the empty cage space. Small. Smiling like it had just made a friend. "Stay close to me," Thexra heard herself say. "Don't run. Don't touch anything. And when we reach the Queen, you kneel. Understand?" The child nodded solemnly. "I understand." "Thank you, Commander Thexra." She hadn't given her name. The child walked down the ramp beside her, small hand reaching up to grasp the edge of Thexra's armored forearm. The Royal Guard's weapons tracked the movement. 12 targeting lasers painted red dots across the child's chest. Thexra felt the small fingers squeeze gently against her armor plating. Not afraid, not defiant, just trusting. They walked toward the Judgment Hall as the first moon rose over the Imperial City, and Commander Thexra wondered if she was escorting a prisoner to justice or leading something far more dangerous into the heart of everything she'd sworn to protect. The child hummed softly as they walked, a human melody. Simple and sad and somehow hopeful. Behind them, Lieutenant Vorn followed with his weapon drawn, because someone had to maintain protocol, even when the world stopped making sense. The Judgment Hall's doors loomed ahead. Inside, Queen Ysisvara waited to pass sentence on the galaxy's greatest monster. The monster squeezed Thexra's arm again and asked in a small voice, "Will it hurt very much?" The Judgment Hall had witnessed 6,000 years of imperial justice. Its walls held memory crystal recordings of every verdict, every sentence, every moment of law upheld since the Valorian Empire first reached for the stars. Those walls hummed now with the assembled presence of 70 worlds demanding retribution. The air tasted like copper and ozone and barely restrained violence. Queen Ysvara sat motionless on the crystal throne. 7 feet of regal power, her carapace polished to mirror brightness, her forearms resting in positions of absolute authority. The crown of her ancestors, grown from her own exoskeleton over 40 years of rule, caught the bioluminescent light and threw rainbow patterns across the assembled witnesses. Her face remained perfectly neutral. Valorian royalty did not show emotion before judgment was passed, but her innermost heart chamber contracted when she saw what Commander Thexra led through the doors. A child. A genuine, small, fragile child. The reports had said child. The intelligence files had specified juvenile. The Terran Confederacy's surrender documents had listed age estimates, but words on tactical displays were different from reality, walking across sacred judicial floors in bare feet, one hand clutching a warrior's armor like a lifeline. The gallery erupted. Delegates from the Carthix Confederation surged to their feet. The Drell ambassador's translator screeched accusations. Someone from the Outer Rim colonies screamed about murdered families. The chamber dissolved into chaos, 70 different species demanding 70 different forms of execution. Queen Ysisvara raised one hand. Silence fell like a blade. Commander Thexra stopped at the prescribed distance from the throne. 15 paces, close enough to be heard, far enough to be contained if necessary. The child stayed beside her, head tilted back to stare up at the vaulted ceiling, where memory crystals pulsed with ancient light. "Commander." The Queen's voice resonated through the chamber. "Present the accused." Thexra's mandibles clicked once. She looked down at the child. The small figure met her gaze, then nodded and stepped forward alone. 3 paces, exactly the distance protocol demanded. Then the child knelt, hands folded in lap, back straight, perfect form, like someone had taught it how to show respect before power. "State your designation," Queen Ysisvara commanded. "I don't have a name." The child's voice carried clearly despite its softness. "The doctors called me Subject Zero. Some of the nurses called me Seven. One of them called me Hope, but she disappeared after that. You are accused of crimes against 70 allied worlds, 2,347,812 confirmed deaths, destruction of civilian vessels, genocide across 16 systems. Do you understand these charges? I understand that people died. I understand it was because of me." The child's voice didn't waver. "I understand you have to punish someone." Queen Ysisvara's secondary heart skipped. The phrasing was wrong. "Not I killed them. Not I'm guilty. Just clinical acceptance of consequence. She leaned forward slightly, breaking throne protocol for the first time in a decade. Tell me what happened on colony ship Perseus. 12,000 souls. Families. Children like you. The small figure trembled but didn't look away. They brought me to the medical bay. They said they needed to run tests. I told them I was feeling sick again, the way I always feel before it happens. I begged them to put me back in the shielded room. They said the tests were more important. The chief medical officer held my arms down while they took samples. I cried. I begged. Then the headache started, and I couldn't stop it anymore, and everyone started screaming, and the walls melted, and... The child stopped, swallowed hard. It took 6 hours. I heard every scream. Queen Yusisvara accessed her memory crystal files through the throne interface, the Perseus incident. She pulled the full report, read the survivor testimony from the 3 crew members who'd been in shielded engine compartments. Their accounts matched perfectly. Medical staff had been running unauthorized experiments. The child's radiation signature had spiked only after they'd removed it from containment against documented safety protocols. The Valorian agricultural station on Terrax. 7, the Queen continued. 8,000 dead. Explain. Pirates attacked the station. They breached the containment wing looking for valuable prisoners to ransom. They shot the guards protecting my cell. They opened the door. The child's hands clenched. I told them not to. I showed them the warning signs. They laughed and said a human child couldn't hurt them. They dragged me out to their ship. I felt it starting and I tried to stop it, but there were so many people on the station and the pirates kept moving me closer to populated sections and... The voice broke. Tears spilled down the small face. I heard them too. All of them. I always hear them, quote, Queen Yusisvara's minds processed parallel threads of thought. 73 major incidents across 3 years. She pulled every file, every report, every piece of evidence. Her enhanced cognition assembled patterns in microseconds. Every single death occurred when someone violated containment protocols. Every single incident began with removal from shielded isolation. Every single casualty list included the personnel who'd forced the child into dangerous proximity with unshielded populations. The Terran Confederacy hadn't weaponized a child. They'd created one by accident, some medical experiment gone catastrophically wrong, and then proven utterly incapable of containing it. And rather than admit their failure, rather than request help, they'd let it happen again and again, while their scientists tried desperately to find a cure or a kill switch or anything that would let them keep their abominations secret. Until the body count grew too high to hide, until the galaxy demanded justice, until they finally surrendered their mistake in exchange for peace. Why didn't you kill yourself? The question came from the Carthix delegate. If you knew you were dangerous, why didn't you... I tried? The child's voice went flat. 17 times, I tried holding my breath. Tried refusing food, tried running into walls, tried swallowing things. They always stopped me. They said I was too valuable, that I was the key to a medical breakthrough, that millions could be saved if they just figured out how I worked. A bitter sound that might have been laughter. Millions. They were right about the millions part. Queen Yusvara felt something she hadn't experienced in 40 years of rule. Uncertainty. The law was clear. Intentional or not, this being had caused unprecedented destruction. Justice demanded consequence. The 70 worlds demanded blood. But looking at the kneeling child, thin, shaking, tears streaming down a face that had learned despair before it learned joy, she saw no monster. She saw a victim. Commander Thexera. The Queen's voice cut through the chamber's rising murmur. Your assessment? You transported the prisoner. You observed it directly. What is your professional judgment? Thexera stepped forward. Her mandibles clicked twice, a sign of careful consideration. Your Majesty, the subject demonstrated no aggression during transport. It escaped containment but used that freedom only to express gratitude for basic kindness. It followed instructions perfectly. She paused. It asked me if execution would hurt very much, and it apologized in advance for any trouble it might cause. That proves nothing, the Drell ambassador spat. Manipulation. Deception. Exactly what you'd expect from... It could have killed us all. Thexera's interruption shocked the chamber into silence. Royal Guard commanders did not interrupt ambassadors, ever. The containment field failed completely. The child stood in open air for 47 seconds before we reached the palace. It absorbed enough energy to level a city block, but it didn't. It just held my arm and hummed a song and asked questions about the moons. Another protocol break. The sovereign stood only to deliver final judgment or declare war. She descended the 7 steps to the judicial floor. Her ceremonial robes, woven from the silk of 1,000 worlds, whispered against stone. She stopped 3 paces from the kneeling child. Look at tear-tracked, exhausted, resigned. "If I release you," the queen said quietly, "what'll you do?" "Release me? You mean you're not going to execute me?" "Answer the question." The child's expression cycled through confusion, hope, fear, and finally settled into something achingly honest. "I'd ask you to help me die. Properly. Somewhere far from anyone, where it won't hurt people when it finally happens. I'd ask you to be kind about it, and I'd say thank you." The voice broke again. "I'm so tired of hurting people." Queen Isisvara's 4 hands moved in a gesture her people recognized instantly. Not judgment, not condemnation. Compassion. The Terran Confederacy created you through criminal negligence. They used you as an unwilling subject in unauthorized medical experiments. They failed to contain you properly, blamed you for their failures, and finally surrendered you to avoid accountability for their own crimes. The Queen's voice filled the chamber. Every being in this room has lost someone to the consequences of their actions. But you did not choose to become what you are. You did not choose to be used as a weapon. You did not choose to kill. Your Majesty. The Carthix delegates surged forward. "The law demands justice." Queen Isivara's tone hardened. "Not revenge. Not the execution of children for the crimes of their creators." She looked at the assembled representatives. "Subject Zero will be placed in my personal custody. The Valorian Empire's finest scientists will work to shield its abilities or cure its condition. If we fail, we will help it end its suffering with dignity, far from populated space. But we will not murder a child to satisfy bloodlust."
The chamber exploded.
Delegates screamed. Ambassadors threatened to withdraw from the alliance. The Outer Rim representative called the Queen a traitor. Security forces moved to contain the chaos. Queen Isvara ignored them all. She extended one hand toward the kneeling child. "You've spent your entire life as a weapon, as a subject." "As a thing. Would you like to try being a person instead? At the Queen of the Valorian Empire, at the ruler of 70 worlds who is choosing mercy over vengeance, political catastrophe over expedient execution?" Small fingers reached up, grasped, held on like salvation itself. "I don't know how to be a person," the child whispered. "Neither did I when I was young." Queen Isvara smiled, a human expression she'd learned specifically for diplomatic purposes, but had never truly felt until this moment. "We'll figure it out together." The small body weighed almost nothing. The child's head rested against her shoulder, and for the first time in 3 years, the galaxy's most wanted criminal simply cried like the frightened child it had always been. Commander Thexor watched her queen carry the small figure toward the private royal chambers. Ignoring the shouting delegates, the threatening ambassadors, the crumbling political alliances, the warrior had served for 20 years, had never questioned an order, had always trusted her queen's wisdom. Now she understood why. Justice, real justice, required courage that most beings would never possess. Behind them, Lieutenant Vorn holstered his weapon and asked quietly, "What happens now, Commander?" Thexor's mandibles clicked once, a conversation-ending sound. But her voice held something new, something that felt like hope. "Now we protect them both, whatever it takes." The Judgment Hall's doors closed. The memory crystals pulsed with new recordings. History would remember this day, would judge it, would argue about it across centuries. But in the private royal chambers, Queen Isvara simply held a crying child and whispered that everything would be okay, and for the first time in Subject Zero's short, terrible life, someone meant it. The galaxy could rage. Let it rage. Mercy, once given, could not be taken back. And the Queen of 70 Worlds had just declared that kindness mattered more than politics, more than vengeance, more than the comfortable certainty of punishment. In the morning, the real work would begin. Scientists, shielding, solutions, hope. But tonight, a child who had never known gentleness finally learned what safety felt like, and that, Queen Isisvara decided as she felt small arms clutched tighter around her neck, was worth every political alliance she might lose. Some things were worth more than empires. Some choices defined who you were, and she chose to be someone who protected children, even when the entire galaxy demanded their blood. The crystal throne room fell silent as the last delegate stormed out, and in that silence the sound of a child's relieved crying echoed like the first notes of a better future.